Hey guys, tonight we head north, way north, where your eyelashes freeze faster than your phone battery dies, and the air bites harder than a polar windstorm on an empty stomach. Imagine standing on an endless white plain. The horizon blurs into the sky, and overhead, long ribbons of green, purple, and faint red twist like slow-motion fire. The northern lights, Aurora borealis, look peaceful, but if you were an Inuit hunter a few centuries ago, they were more than pretty lights. They were guides, warnings, maybe even voices. And if you misread their message, well, you probably wouldn't survive the night. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The snow crunches beneath your boots as you move slowly, pulling your fur-lined hood tighter. The world is silent, except for your breath and the faint hiss of wind. Somewhere under your feet, a seal sleeps in its icy tunnel. You can almost feel the heartbeat of the Arctic beneath you. Your ancestors have walked this same ice for thousands of years. They carried harpoons of carved bone, knives made from walrus tusks, and faith in the rhythm of stars, winds, and shimmering lights. Inuit hunters weren't just survivors, they were readers of nature's language. Every puff of snow, every flicker in the sky meant something. They knew that when the aurora danced wildly, the weather would shift soon, sometimes bringing a storm, sometimes breaking one. Some believed the auroras were spirits of the animals they'd hunted, soaring above in celebration or warning. Others said they were torches carried by ancestors, lighting the way for lost souls. You pause for a moment and glance up. The lights swirl faster now, pulsing like veins of fire in the heavens. You remember what your grandfather once said: "When the sky moves like that, the seals move too." Hunters watched the lights to predict animal migrations or to know when ice sheets were weakening. Historians still argue whether these connections were coincidence or pattern, but for those living on the edge of the world, every sign mattered. The night deepens. Your dogs huddle close, their breath steaming in the freezing air. Somewhere, a fox yips, its call sharp and short. The aurora glows brighter, turning snowdrifts into seas of green light. You almost feel like you're walking through water, your steps slow, your senses sharpened. Each inhale burns your lungs, each exhale becomes a ghost in the dark. The elders once told stories of the lights chasing away evil spirits. They said if you were lost, you could whistle to the aurora to guide you home, but only once. Whistle twice, and you might summon something that wasn't so friendly. You smile to yourself. Even science can't fully explain why those lights dance the way they do. Electrons colliding with oxygen atoms high above, sure, but that doesn't make the legends less beautiful. As you move farther onto the ice, you feel the hum of the world, the low, unseen energy that ties everything together. The aurora reflects off your fur, painting it green. The dogs perk up, sensing movement far away. It's time to set the traps, to trust the old ways. No compass, no map, no phone signal, just light and instinct. You crouch low and carve a hole into the ice. The sound of the blade scraping echoes softly. The water below gurgles, alive. Above, the sky ripples like silk in slow motion. You realize this isn't just survival, it's communion with the world, with history, with the sky itself. And as you finally sit back to rest, staring up at those ancient whispering rites, you can't help but think, maybe your ancestors were right. Maybe the aurora really is alive. The next morning doesn't really look like morning at all. Just a paler shade of blue stitched between endless shadows. The aurora still lingers faintly, as if reluctant to leave, glowing like the memory of a dream. You rise slowly, feeling the weight of your sealskin clothing, the frost on your eyelashes, and the silence that seems to press against your ears. The dogs stir, one yawns, another noses at your mitten, impatient for the day's journey. You pack your sled with quiet precision. Every rope, every hook, every strip of dried fish matters out here. You glance at the sky again. No compass points north quite like the old light patterns above. For generations, Inuit hunters called the aurora Oxaniat, the ball players. The story went that the lights were spirits of the dead playing games with a walrus skull in the heavens. But some elders said the lights moved that way because they followed the paths of caribou or seal herds. They swore the flicker and direction of the glow revealed where animals were traveling, north for seals, inland for caribou. It sounds mystical now, but think about it. When the aurora flared strongly, it meant a disturbance in the upper atmosphere, often tied to changes in wind or temperature. That shift could affect animal movement, even subtly. So superstition and observation blended, becoming a survival code. You followed those same instincts now, moving where the lights once danced fiercest the night before. Your sled slides across the snow, runners squealing softly. You squint at the distance, a faint line of darker ice, a potential breathing hole. The dogs pick up the pace, their paws scattering fine powder. You can almost smell the promise of food. The aurora has faded now, but its echo remains, like invisible footprints guiding you forward. Somewhere in the far distance, faint plumes of steam rise from the ice. Seal holes. You kneel, touching the surface lightly, still fresh. You remember the old technique. Lay down a sliver of bone near the hole, then step back and wait. You listen for the gentle pop of a seal surfacing. As you crouch, the cold gnaws at your fingers. You glance skyward again out of habit, half expecting the aurora to wink back at you. For the Inuit hunters, the lights weren't just myth, they were memory. They'd guide you, warn you, sometimes even comfort you when you were alone on the tundra. Historians still argue whether the connection between auroral intensity and animal movement had any basis in fact. Some claim it was coincidence. Others think it was an early form of pattern recognition, a merging of observation and belief too fine for outsiders to understand. You smile quietly. Maybe the truth doesn't matter. What mattered was trusting the sign. By midday, you've moved miles from your camp. The light is low, the world flat. Every sound seems magnified. The crunch of snow, the squeal of sled ropes, the breath of dogs. You pause to rest, pulling out a small piece of frozen fish. It's as hard as stone, but you chip off a bite anyway. You laugh softly. It tastes like bravery and boredom. Then, as you chew, you spot something curious. A faint shimmer of light beneath the snow, reflecting off ice crystals. The same eerie hue as the aurora. You remember the elders saying that when the ground glows like that, it means the spirits are near, guiding your path. You're not sure you believe that, but still, you whisper a quiet thanks just in case. Night falls again, though it's hard to tell where one night ends and the next begins. The aurora returns, brighter this time, painting streaks across the black sky. You trace them with your mitten, following their movement like an old map. The dogs howl softly, as if responding to something ancient. You realize that every hunter who ever walked this land probably looked up just like this, eyes wide, wondering if the lights were speaking. You wonder too. Maybe they still are. The wind rises that evening, hissing over the frozen plain like a giant whisper. You tug your fur collar higher and keep walking. Above you, the aurora burns in slow green ribbons, so vivid it casts faint shadows on the snow. It feels like a conversation, half science and half prayer. By now, you've heard both sides of that conversation. Elders still talk about spirits playing in the sky, but young hunters, the ones who've seen weather satellites and cell towers, say it's all electrons and solar wind. You don't argue with either. Out here, belief and science don't fight. They share the same campfire. You stop at a ridge to catch your breath. The dogs curl their tails close and settle, their bodies forming little mounds of warmth against the ice. You tilt your head back and just watch the lights shift and ripple. Somewhere far above, particles from the sun are colliding with Earth's magnetic field, creating this glowing ballet. The colors change depending on which gases are struck. Oxygen gives green and red, nitrogen makes purple. You remember reading that once, maybe in a torn page from an old science book left at the outpost. And yet, as your breath fogs the air, you can't help but hear your grandmother's voice too, whispering stories of auroras guiding lost travelers, of lights leading fishermen home when compasses spun madly. Historians still argue whether those tales came before or after the scientific explanations, but you know which one feels warmer on a night like this. The cold deepens. You move toward a rocky rise where the snow thins out. There's a half-buried cairn there, stones stocked long ago by hands now gone. You brush the frost away and see the carving etched faintly into one. Nunakpak, Big Land. It's both a name and a reminder that no one ever truly owns this place. As the aurora flares, you recall an old observation. When the lights move strongly east to west, storms tended to follow. Hunters took that as a warning to find shelter, so you build one quickly. Snow blocks arranged in a circle, the entrance facing away from the wind. Inside, it's almost silent. Your own heartbeat sounds like thunder. You light a small seal oil lamp, its flame flickering golden against curved walls. The smell is heavy, but familiar. You warm your hands and listen to the crackling sound outside, the wind pressing its palms against the ice. It feels like you're sitting inside a heartbeat. You think of how knowledge changed over time. Once hunters thought the aurora's crackling sound came from spirits playing games in the sky. Later, explorers insisted it was pure imagination. Now, modern scientists have detected faint radio waves, proof that auroras can indeed create audible effects under the right conditions. Maybe you think the ancestors weren't wrong at all, just poetic. You chuckle softly. Maybe that's what history really is, a long debate between poetry and proof. Outside, the wind dies suddenly. The dogs start to stir, restless. You step out, and what you see steals your breath. The aurora isn't just above, it's all around. Curtains of green and violet shimmer across the horizon, folding over themselves like slow waves. You reach out, almost expecting to touch them. For a moment, everything feels connected. The cold, the stars, your ancestors, the invisible forces flowing through space. You realize this was the true map the Inuit followed, not drawn on paper, but written in light. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you remember a modern theory. Geomagnetic storms sometimes influence animal migration, affecting navigation patterns in birds, whales, even reindeer. Could that explain why the hunters linked the aurora to food? Maybe. Historians still debate it, and no one's certain. But as you watch those lights sway above the tundra, you decide that sometimes maybe is enough. The fire inside your lamp flickers lower, and you crawl back into the igloo, curling beneath your fur blanket. Outside, the aurora keeps moving, tireless, ancient, whispering secrets across the magnetic poles. Before your eyes close, you murmur one last thought into the quiet. Whatever you are, keep dancing. They'd tell stories, not around a loud fire, but with hushed voices, as though the Aurora might lean down to listen. Each story carried a lesson: patience, respect, humility. Don't take more than you need, they'd say. Don't laugh too loudly under the lights. They can hear you. It wasn't fear, it was reverence. One tale always stands out in your memory: a young hunter who mocked the aurora by throwing his spear toward it. The next day, his spear was found miles away, frozen upright in the ice, pointing back toward home. The elders said the lights returned it to teach him direction, not punishment, just a gentle nudge from the sky. You grin. Even cosmic lessons have humor. You glance up again, tracing the aurora's ribbons as they twist and ripple. Science says those lights have no sound, no consciousness, just ionized particles reacting in silence. But sitting here, in this vast quiet, where even your heartbeat feels too loud, it's hard not to feel like something greater is watching. Historians still argue whether these old taboos, no whistling, no mocking, no loud laughter,
were about spiritual respect or simple safety, perhaps both. Maybe those rules kept hunters focused, kept them alive in a land where distraction could kill faster than hunger. You think of that and nod silently. Sometimes myth is just another word for memory. The night deepens. The sky folds inward, and you play the flute once more, just one long, soft note. The aurora brightens slightly, as if answering back. You don't know whether that's science or magic, but it doesn't matter. Some mysteries are better left glowing quietly in the dark. You travel farther now into the deep silence of the Arctic, where no map feels trustworthy, and no sound breaks the stillness except your own heartbeat. The sled creaks softly behind you, dogs panting through frosty air, their breath rising in small clouds that vanish as quickly as they appear. The aurora has been quiet for 2 nights, and though the hunt still matters, you sense that something greater has begun, an ending, or maybe an understanding. Your hands ache from cold, and your eyelashes have frozen into tiny icicles. You rub them with your mitten and keep moving. In the distance, you can see faint shapes where the ice buckles and cracks, pressure ridges marking the slow drift of the frozen sea. Each groan of the ice sounds alive, like the earth turning in its sleep. The dogs grow restless. They sense thinner ice ahead. You slow down, testing each step with the butt of your spear. Then out of nowhere, a faint green shimmer flickers at the horizon. It starts weak, like a candle struggling in the wind, but soon strengthens into a wide arc of light stretching across the sky. The aurora returns more brilliant than before, and for the first time you feel not just awe, but companionship, as though the sky itself decided to walk beside you. You set up camp near an outcrop of old ice, carving a small shelter. Inside, you light your seal oil lamp and sit quietly. The flame dances in rhythm with the lights outside. You remember stories of the last great hunts, the elders venturing out one final time, guided only by instinct and aurora glow, when compasses failed and the stars hid behind clouds. They said the lights showed them where the seals would surface, flickering brightest above places rich with life. You step back out, standing beneath the swirling canopy. The dogs lie still, their eyes glowing faintly in the green wash. You raise your gaze higher now. The aurora pulses stronger, ribbons bending and folding like breath made visible. You think of how many generations must have stood here before you, watching the same sky, reading its shifting language. You realize this: tracking the aurora isn't about hunting animals anymore. It's about finding meaning in movement, direction in beauty. The old hunters followed it because it gave them hope, rhythm, reason to keep walking in a world where survival was as fragile as ice. You follow it now for the same reason, even if your tools are different. GPS or no GPS, everyone's still searching for a light to guide them. Historians still debate whether the Inuit truly used the aurora as a navigational tool, or whether it was mostly symbolic, a reflection of faith rather than fact. But out here, that distinction fades. You see with your own eyes how the light bends near the magnetic pole, aligning subtly with invisible lines of force. Maybe the old hunters didn't need scientific terms. They just knew. As the night stretches on, the aurora changes color, green to violet, violet to red. It feels almost alive, like a giant heartbeat pulsing through the sky. You whisper a quiet thanks, not to gods, not to science, but to the sky itself, for reminding you that even in the coldest places, light still moves. The dogs sigh and settle. The wind softens into nothing. You lie back against the snow, arms crossed, eyes open to the cosmic river flowing above. The lamp flickers out, but you don't need it anymore. The aurora lights the world enough. You close your eyes, imagining what it must have been like centuries ago. The last great hunters walking across the same endless white, trusting the heavens more than anything built by hand. You feel connected to them now, bound by cold and courage and curiosity. And in that connection, you find a kind of warmth that even the Arctic can't freeze. The aurora ripples one final time, slow and wide, like a curtain closing at the end of a story. The world grows quiet again. The light above softens into pale threads, slowly unraveling into the dark. The dogs are asleep now, their paws twitching in dreams. The wind no longer bites. It hums gently, almost kindly, brushing the snow into faint, flowing shapes. You can feel your heartbeat slowing, matching the steady rhythm of the earth below and the sky above. You think about the generations who came before you, hunters, mothers, children, all who once looked up at this same sky and felt the same wonder. The aurora has outlasted them all, yet carries their stories in every flicker and wave. It's strange how something so silent can speak so clearly, how it can fill the emptiness of the world with meaning without ever saying a word. You breathe deeply. The cold air enters like glass, clear and sharp, then leaves as mist. The stars begin to reappear where the lights have faded. Somewhere, far off, a seal slips quietly into the water, unseen but heard. Everything feels connected. The movement of the sea, the shimmer of the sky, the stillness of your own thoughts. You let your eyes close at last. The world feels vast, yet gentle. The aurora is gone now, but its glow remains inside your memory, like a soft lantern left burning after the story ends. You drift between waking and sleep, listening to the slow rhythm of snow and breath and time. And in that hush, the Arctic no longer feels lonely. It feels alive.